So, a very good evening to everyone once again, and thank you for joining us today. We are moving ahead with our fifth session for the day, admission interviews and video essays. We have Ms. Katherine Mehta from Xtraview joining us for this session. Katherine is the CEO and founder of Advanta Consulting, where she works with international high school students across India, Singapore, Indonesia, and UK to help them navigate the US undergraduate admission process and gain admission to the best fit colleges. Katherine is also a member of International Association for College Admissions and Counseling. Today, she will be giving tips on how to prepare for your interviews and how to showcase your poise, communication skills, and potential by demonstrating to admission officers glimpses of your true personality. A pleasure to have you, Katherine.
Thank you so much, Kajal, for that introduction. And thank you for having me here this evening. I'd also like to start by thanking you all for attending. I'm going to share my screen and pull up my presentation. All right, great. Is my screen visible to everyone?
Yes.
Fantastic. All right. So without further ado, I'm going to jump right into it. So as a quick introduction, my name is Katherine, and as Kajal mentioned, yes, I'm the co-founder of Xtraview. Xtraview is a digital interview platform that allows students to record live interviews and then share that recording with universities, summer programs, research programs, so many different kinds of opportunities that use interviews as a part of their admissions process. And so this is also a great opportunity for students to really showcase who they are and what they're passionate about beyond just, their grades and their test scores. And today, I'm really excited to be speaking with you guys about the role of interviews in the entire profile building and college application process. So far in today's session, you've heard lots of interesting opportunities, or you will hear about them, whether it's research programs, summer programs, internships, volunteer work, and all of this is phenomenal. In some ways I'm kind of envious. I wish that I had so many opportunities that were available and so much information out there when I was in high school, because I think, the more you do, the more that you take advantage of, and the more that you demonstrate in terms of your profile and profile building in high school, the stronger your applications will be. But I think, once you've done all of this work, then there's sort of this fundamental question of, okay, so now what? How do I make sure that universities really understand what I've been doing with myself for these past 4 years? How do I convey that information to universities in the application process? So there are a few methods for this. One is, the application form itself, which will have an activities list. There will be a CV or a resume that you can sometimes send, which will kind of be a quick rundown of the activities. And then, of course, there are your essays where you can write a little bit more about, here's what I'm passionate about, here's what I've done. But I think another really, really important piece of this puzzle and sharing this information is the interview. And this interview can play a really important role in admissions, because this is where, an admissions officer can actually see you, they can hear you, they can understand how you communicate, they can get this sense of how you understand and see the world, and it allows you to kind of connect the dots. So show, yes, grades, test scores, yes, my essays, yes, my profile, but let me fill that all in. Let me become the real person who's behind these experiences and numbers. So interviews, again, play this really important role in admissions and in profile building. And if you are prepared for these interviews, then it means that in the admissions process, you'll be able to speak, you'll be able to articulate that information about who you are, you'll be able to showcase what you've done, and ultimately you're going to succeed in the college admissions process. Before I get into more details about, how you can really approach your preparation for these interviews, I wanted to backtrack really quickly and just talk a bit about the overall role of profile building in holistic admissions review. So many of you have probably heard that for US admissions in particular, profile building is very important. And this is because US does employ a holistic admissions review across the board. So it means in addition to standardized test scores, SAT, they're also, and your grades, they're also looking at things like your essays, your extracurricular activities, your letters of recommendation. So they really want to know who you are beyond just the numbers. They want to understand what makes you tick, what motivates and excites you. What are you passionate about? What will you bring to their campus? Even for Canada, there's some emphasis placed on profile building, especially if you are intending to apply for any merit scholarships. So for merit scholarship consideration, they're really looking at what leadership roles have you taken on? How have you made a positive impact on your school or community? And so all of this is demonstrated through your profile building activities. Even in the UK and Europe, which tend to be more academic in focus, there's still scope and space for profile building. However, it means that that profile building might be more aligned with your academic interests and the major or the course that you're applying for. So let's say, for example, you're applying for medicine. Then in your personal statement that goes to UK universities, you would write not just about, here's how I've done in biology and chemistry in high school, but also about the experiences that you've had, whether it's volunteering with hospitals, whether it's, leading medical clinics and camps in your colony, whether it's, the things that fascinate you, the TED Talks and the YouTube videos that you watch about the latest trends in medicine. But all of this information that really kind of informs and becomes a large part of your profile building, even when it's connected to ultimately what you plan to study and want to do in the future. And even in Indian universities, we're seeing increasingly a trend towards more holistic admissions review. So more and more universities are now starting to adopt interviews as a part of their application review because they've either, they see value in the holistic admissions review process, or in some ways, with students not having access, with the pandemic for the past 2 years, not having access to the same sort of board exam structure as before, universities need a new mechanism to really be able to kind of evaluate students. So across the board, profile building, and then also being able to communicate that profile building in the form of interviews is really important. And I would say that, these interviews don't just start when you're applying to college. These interviews actually start earlier, in pursuing and gaining access to certain profile building opportunities. Students will also encounter interviews. So, for example, if a student wants to apply for a leadership role in or out of school, let's say that they're applying for, editor-in-chief of their school's ed board, or they're applying for a student council position, chances are that they're going to have to interview, whether it's with the faculty and administrators and teachers at their school, or it might even be, a panel of students who had previously been in the student council. But students will likely have to interview for that post. For internships, students will probably have to interview with someone from the organization so that the organization can really kind of suss out, okay, is this student someone who we'd like to take on for the summer as an intern? Are they going to be a good fit for our organization? Will they be able to handle the expectations that we have for our summer interns? Even for things like summer programs, competitive research programs. So I know that Lumiere was here presenting earlier. Lumiere and other summer programs will have an interview as a part of their overall admissions process, because again, they want to understand, beyond just what you've put into your application, who are you as a student? What are you bringing? Will you be a good fit so that we should consider taking you into our cohort of incoming students? So in all of these, I think, a few sort of a rule across the board for how you can succeed in these interviews is, number one, to demonstrate why you are a great fit for this role or for this organization. If you can showcase why you're a good fit, why they should take you in, then automatically you've already got, your foot in the door in terms of making a compelling argument for why they should select you. But I would say that the way that you demonstrate that differs depending on the type of opportunity that you're applying and interviewing for. So if, for example, someone is applying to be editor-in-chief of their school's newspaper, what are the kinds of qualities and skills that they should demonstrate in order to show why they should be selected? So here it requires, in terms of preparation, it requires a little bit of thinking about, all right, what does a good editor-in-chief have or demonstrate? So things like leadership skills, the ability to work with and motivate a diverse team, the ability to stick to deadlines. That's really important, as if you're leading the ed board, stick to deadlines, work well under pressure, attention to detail, right? All of these different qualities. And so if a student can identify that these are the qualities that they would be looking for, B, demonstrate how they possess these qualities. So not just saying, yes, I have good attention to detail and I work well with others, but really being able to demonstrate that based on their past activities, their track record, what they've already done in high school, then that's an excellent start in terms of their interview preparation and beginning to showcase those qualities that make them an excellent fit for the role. Similarly, if a student were applying for, let's say, a summer science research program, the kinds of qualities and skills and interests that they would need to demonstrate would be fundamentally different, right? So instead of talking about teamwork and leadership skills and sticking to deadlines, which, yeah, kind of important for research, but really for a research program, I think what they want to see in candidates are things like curiosity, right? So when you are excited about something or when there's a question that pops up, do you just say, yeah, that's interesting, and move on with life? Or do you say, I am so fascinated by this that I won't be able to sleep until I dig down to the bottom and really get to the root of this, right? Do you have sort of that deep burning curiosity that will motivate you to keep pushing further and further in research? Or demonstrating things like, what have you done when you're curious about a question? Do you read more? Do you reach out to people? Do you watch YouTube videos and TED Talks on it, right? So again, demonstrating not just here are the skills that I bring that make me a strong fit for this program, but also here's how I've shown this. Here's, tangible evidence and examples of how I've demonstrated this in the past. So I think that these are kind of key tips or key rules when you're approaching interviewing, especially for profile building opportunities to keep in mind in terms of your preparation. And ultimately, interviews and succeeding in interviews is all about that preparation and that practice, and finally that presentation. So in 2 minutes, I'll also come to a few tips to begin to tackle those specific aspects of the interview. But before that, I want to move one step ahead. So let's say, you're nearing the end of high school, you've completed or you're working on a lot of your profile building stuff, and now it comes the time to apply to universities. So again, how do you convey this key information about what you've done through interviews with universities? There are three main types of interviews broadly that you may encounter in the admissions process. So the first one is going to be an admissions interview that's actually taking place with a member of the admissions office. So this may be admissions faculty, or it may be a current student of the university who's an intern working within the admissions office. And typically these interviews carry a little more weight in the overall admissions process because the person that you're interviewing with will likely have a direct say in whether or not you're admitted to the program. In these interviews also, depending on where you are in the admissions cycle, so if you've already applied to the university, then you should assume that that interviewer may have access to your application and your admission file. So they may even want to delve into specific aspects of the application. They may want to ask about something you've written in the essay. They may want to ask about one of your activities that you reported on the Common App form. So important to keep that in mind and be prepared for that type of question, as well as answering questions specifically about the university when you're going into an interview that's going to be conducted with an admissions officer. The next type of interview you might encounter is the alumni interview. So this one is then conducted with, a former student of the university. The alumni interview might take place locally, depending on how many alumni are available. So you may actually be meeting them in person in your city, or they might take place remotely or virtually. So it would take place over a virtual platform like Zoom. And In general, the alumni interview is a little more casual, especially if it's a younger alumni, if it's someone who's recently graduated or is closer in age to the student. It tends to be a little more lighthearted, a little more conversational. And in general, the alumni interview also carries a little less weight in the admissions process, in the sense that, the alumni might share a write-up with the university after the interview, but the alumni who's interviewed you does not have a direct say in whether or not you are accepted. However, I still strongly recommend doing alumni interviews because they help to demonstrate your interest in the university, and they're great practice. In life, you're going to encounter more interviews in the future, so this is great practice for those as well. Alumni interviews are also a great opportunity to actually ask the alum about his or her own experience with the school. So it's an open opportunity to ask them things about, what was your favorite part of attending this university? What class or professor do you absolutely recommend all students take a class with? What was your favorite tradition? What was your favorite part of campus, right? This can be a great opportunity for students to connect with someone at the university that they're applying to, and just learn more about it and understand more about what the student experience is actually like at the university. Okay, and then finally, the third type of interview that you may encounter in the admissions process is the video interview. And again, this I'm going to kind of break down into 3 different forms. So the first one is a self-recorded video interview. So in this case, you would set yourself up either with your computer, with your phone, and you would just record a short video that you submit to the university. This can sometimes have a prompt. Sometimes it can be completely open-ended. In both cases, strongly recommend that you still prepare for it. So you shouldn't just go in and say, I think I'm going to wing this one and see how it goes. I think that in the same way that if you were going up on stage to give a speech, you would likely prepare beforehand, right? So you would have, if not, you don't necessarily need to have a script that you've memorized, but you should have your talking points ready to go. You should know the order, you should know the flow, you should have practiced a few times and timed yourself to make sure that you're making the most of that, that space and that opportunity that you're being given in one of these self-recorded video interviews. The next type of interview that you may encounter is an AI-based interview. So in this one, you typically log in at a given time. You are not given the prompts beforehand. Instead, once you're logged in, the prompts will appear on screen. You usually have 20 to 30 seconds to prepare. Then the recording starts, you give your response. And then once you're done, you click next and go on to the next question. So it may be a set of kind of questions that are AI generated. So again, even here, while you may not know the exact prompts beforehand, still highly recommend that you prepare for this type of interview by anticipating what are the kinds of questions that may come up. And usually there's sort of a general question base or question bank that tends to be used for this type of AI interview. And so anticipating what are those questions, and then how would I respond to those, and kind of thinking through those talking points that you would have, and what examples, what anecdotes, what stories you would bring in your responses to ultimately give a really compelling and strong interview. The final type of video interview that you may encounter is a live interview. So in this case, again, this would be provided by a third-party platform like Xtraview, where you log in at a given time, and there you would actually be, virtually across from another interviewer. This interviewer isn't affiliated with a university, so they're not going to ask you university-specific questions. Instead, they would be asking more general questions about you, your interests, your whole application. And then once this interview is completed, you would receive a recording of it, which again, you can choose to share with as many universities as you would like. So this is a great opportunity for students to really, engage in a conversation with someone else, talk more about themselves, talk more about their interests, and ultimately be able to share that with universities. So it can give a lot of insight into who you are and what you're passionate about. What's that unique spark that you bring to the table beyond just what's been written in, in the other parts of your application. So regardless of the format of the interview, each and every one of these is an opportunity for you to really distinguish yourself, distinguish your application, and stand out from the rest of the applications that admissions officers are reading through. So coming to this question of, okay, so how do I prepare? How do I make sure that I'm in the best position to really make that interview stand out? At Xtraview, we formulated what we like to call the 3 Ps in order to help students really get ready for their interviews. So the 3 Ps stand for prepare, practice, and pre-research. So what do I mean by these? I'm going to run through each of them quickly. So prepare is about sort of your preparation for the interview in the days leading up, but also on the day of. So on the day of, I'm sure you've heard your parents and your grandparents say this before, but your appearance is important. The way that you're presenting yourself to the world is really important in interviews because that's the first impression that you're making. So when you're going into an interview, whether it's in person, whether it's virtual, you want to make sure that you're looking kind of tidy and polished. Your hair is brushed, your clothes don't have any stains or ripped, they're ironed. Obviously, if it's an in-person interview, your whole outfit all the way down to your shoes and your belt matters. If it's online, I mean, it's always good to be, fully prepared in case you need to dash up and run to the other room. But I suppose you could do sort of waist up for your virtual interviews, but making sure that you're really looking presentable, because it gives an impression that you're taking this interview seriously and that you respect the time of the person who's there, either watching the recording or actually interviewing you. So that personal appearance is an important part of your preparation. And when you're doing a virtual interview, your appearance actually extends beyond just your physical appearance. It also includes your setting as well. So before a virtual interview, you want to make sure that you are in a well-lit, non-distracting setting. So a place where, the lighting is clear on your face, there aren't a lot of shadows, where there's minimal background noise, where there's not going to be distracting things like people passing behind you or a lot of, dogs barking in the background, things like that. So before your interview, you want to try to find a place that's relatively quiet and isolated as best as you can, so that there are no distractions when you're interviewing with the other person. Another key part of preparation is making sure that for a virtual interview, your equipment is all set. So making sure whether you're using your laptop, whether you're using your mobile, but making sure that you've got a full charge, plus you have your charging, you have your cord or you have your charging device there, just in case something happens with your battery. And again, just in case, making sure that you've got a Wi-Fi backup or another way to reconnect in case your Wi-Fi drops out. So it's all about having, a plan A and plan B in place, especially when we're in this digital world where you want to try to have a conversation as smoothly and seamlessly as possible. Another part of preparation is, I've mentioned this many times, but anticipating what are the questions that may be asked, because when you anticipate those, then it allows you to move into the next part, which is practice for the interview. So you practice before tests, right? I think most of you would have done mock exams before in preparation. You practice with your teammates before you have any sports match. You practice before big performances with rehearsals. So why wouldn't you also practice when you're going into an admissions interview? Practice is really important because it allows you to work through your responses to make sure that you're ready to go. It strengthens the information that you're sharing, and it gives you that confidence on the day of to feel like, yes, I know this, I've got this, I've spoken out this information many times before, I'm ready to go for this interview. And I would say in the same way that a coach helps to improve a player's performance. When you're practicing, you also want to get good constructive feedback. So that means practicing your responses out loud. Anticipate the questions, think about what you might say in response to them, and then practice it. Whether you're practicing it with a friend, a sibling, a family member, a trusted mentor, but someone who will give you honest feedback to help you improve your responses. And sometimes if you don't have that, you can even practice by yourself. But it's really important that you practice it out loud. So you might record your answers, on your phone and then play it back and listen to where you sound really smooth and solid, the information is all there, versus where you're kind of rambling, where details are unclear, where you're talking in circles, right? I think all of these can be, these can be things, kind of hiccups in an interview that you would rather avoid, because you really want it to be kind of a smooth, seamless, flowing conversation. conversation. And so practice is really essential to allowing you to do that when you're in the actual interview. The final P in the 3 Ps is pre-research. So what do I mean by pre-research? I mean, when you're going into an interview, show them that you've done your homework. Show them that you understand what the role is or what the university is. Show them that you understand what makes it really unique and what the offerings are. And then finally, show them why you're a great fit. So in some of the opportunities, profile building opportunities in high school, let's say you're interviewing for a club or society in your school, it means that you should know details about the club. You should know approximately how many members there are, who's currently on the executive team, what are the recent events that they've had, right? If you can bring that kind of detail into your responses, then automatically they'll know that you've done your research and that you're very interested in this club and you are already imagining how you can get involved, how you can add value. Similarly, when you're doing your pre-research for a university interview, you should make sure you're pulling out relevant details about the courses, the major, the clubs, right? What do you see yourself in particular doing at this university, and why are you interested in this university? Because the more detailed you can be in your responses, the better sense they get of how interested you are. And again, that impression that yes, you would be a great fit for the college, because you can work on aligning yourself with the college's ethos, their vision, their mission, their values. If you can align that with what you want to do in college and sort of who you are, then you're making this great connection between what the college offers, what you'll bring to the table, and why it's sort of this perfect match together, why you are a great fit for the school. So I think across all of these, the one message that I think is really important as a takeaway from this is that communication is key. And the earlier you can unlock these strong communication skills in high school, the more opportunities will be available to you. Yes, in college admissions, absolutely, but even earlier when you're working on building up your profile. In terms of how you can build this, how you can really stand out, how you can prepare for your interviews. At Xtraview, we not only have this digital interview platform, which allows you to record and share these videos, but we also do preparation workshops with students, which we call extra prep workshops. We have one coming up on March 11th. And in this, it's a small group setting. It's very interactive. It's a 2-hour workshop where we go through key things like setting the stage, the kind of content that you would want to bring in, how you deliver that information. So all of that is covered in these workshops. Normally the workshop is rupees 2,999, but for those who are attending today, we're offering a special discounted offer of rupees 1,999 for a limited time. I will put my email address in the chat box. If you're interested in learning more or registering, you can send us an email and then we'll share more details. And now I know we are running close to the end, but I'd be happy to quickly take any questions from the audience if there are some.
Thank you so much, Katherine, for such a detailed presentation and for touching all the points with such precision, for sharing information on what all things a student should keep in mind and what are skills are required for the interviews. So quickly, we have a few questions. I'll just read them out. One is, are Xtraview services available for high school sophomore? Are these services paid?
Yes, to both of them. So yes, there is a fee both for the extra prep workshops as well as if you want to take an Xtraview interview. I will share the website details as well. There's more information there. And yes, absolutely. The services, the video interview is open to anyone as young as 9th grade, because that's really when profile building and interviews begin. And again, I think the earlier that you start to prepare for this, the better you will be and the more successful I think you'll find you'll be in the admissions process.
Great. One more question we can take up, which is how to constructively answer, tell me something about yourself question.
That's a great question, because this is usually something along these lines is usually the opening of an interview. So tell me about yourself. Here, you are setting the stage for the rest of the interview. So you really do want to think about, what do I want? What direction do I want this interview to move in? What do I want the interviewer to absolutely know about me? So you could start with some basic information, here's my name, here's where I live. But then I think it's important to quickly move into kind of that key information of either academically, here's what I'm interested in, or here are my hobbies and passions and interests, or here's something kind of interesting about what I've been doing for the past few months. Because I think if you offer that information early in the interview, then the interviewer has an opportunity to ask follow-up questions on that. And so it really allows you to kind of set the stage and set the course for the rest of the interview.
That's great. Thank you so much, Katherine. It was wonderful having you here and hearing from you. Any closing comments?
Thank you so much for having me. It's really been a pleasure. And I hope to see many of you in our upcoming Extra Prep workshop. We look forward to working with you and helping you unlock all of these opportunities to build amazing and incredible profiles.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.